Welcome to healthyvision.us. This is your host, Dr. Edward Kondrot. After broadcasting Healthy Vision Talk Radio for 22 years, we are now changing the format to the new healthyvision.us. All income from healthyvision.us supports the Restore Vision Foundation, a 501c3 that brings sight to the blind. Your $100 donation will restore the vision of a blind person. You can make a difference. Please donate by going to idonation.us. Also, you can sign up at healthyvision.us to keep up to date on all of our exciting programs. And now let us proceed with today's show. Welcome. This is Dr. Kondrot, and I'm really excited to have my good friend, Dr. Robert Rowen, as a guest. I think he's going to be presenting some fascinating information that I think may be the answer, not only for treating the coronavirus, but many other viral epidemics. And just a bit of information, on March the 19th, I'm going to have another interesting guest. He's going to talk about essential oils. You may think that oils are not that effective, but historically, essential oils can do a lot of good for treating various infections. I think you'll find this very interesting. So sign up March the 19th. So without further ado, Dr. Rowen, thank you so much for joining healthyvision.us.
Thank you for having me, Ed. And it's really a pleasure to bring this information because right now there is a media frenzy about this coronavirus, and the world is gripped in terror over something that I don't think is as bad as they're making out to be, but it is going to be bad for vulnerable people. No doubt about it. And I think that we have an answer for this straight across the board, very inexpensive, extraordinarily safe, and I believe it's going to be highly effective. It's a therapy that is my favorite thing to do. Now, I'm going to, for the viewer, you need to know I'm fairly new at this, and I'm going to be talking to Ed back and forth just to make sure I'm getting this right. So I need to click on this.
Yeah, so you're the presenter now.
Okay. And
you're coming through nice and clear.
Very good. And my screen is visible.
Your screen is visible, and all the attendees out there, maybe let's wait for Dr. Rowen to complete his presentation, and then he's very graciously offered to answer all of your questions.
All right. For the viewer, you need to know a little bit about my background. I'm a medical doctor. I've been doing ozone therapy for 33 years. I graduated Phi Beta Kappa from Johns Hopkins University. I had a love for chemistry and biochemistry. And I went to UC San Francisco Medical School. It's considered one of the world's best. But sadly, what I learned to do in medical school was mostly pharma therapy. And I've learned better today. And there are a lot of better things to do than synthetic petrochemical pharmaceuticals that are expensive and potentially toxic. And pharma has admitted that it has no answers for this. You get a virus in your lungs, there are no answers. You will either live if you're fortunate or you will die. That's how bad it is. So I'm talking now about coronavirus therapy, ozone therapy or oxidation therapy for coronavirus. Ed, are the viewers able to see me or just the screen?
They can see you clear, and they should be able to see me too. So you can do hand gestures and whatever you want to do.
I like this.
Yeah. Oh, Robert, make sure you don't touch your face, okay?
Don't touch my face.
Yeah, that's how one of the ways that the virus spreads.
Oh, okay. How about if I touch yours?
No, don't touch mine or anybody.
Okay. The viewers should know Ed and I have a long history. We're very good friends. We've gone backpacking together. We've been up on Mount Whitney together, and it's just a bunch of laughs and jokes when we go. All right. So why ozone therapy for coronavirus? And let me make sure that, here we go. Here's my quote. With the exception of diet, nutrition, detoxification, and stress reduction, ozone does more good for more conditions than everything I have ever seen in medicine combined. And I've been a practicing physician since I graduated medical school in 1975. So I've been around a while. And this is the most fabulous medical thing I've ever seen in my life. The information in the lecture is supported by hard science, and I'm just going to try to summarize things and then get on to your questions about why this is so fabulous. We're on the cusp of a post-antibiotic era. This is BBC News. And here it says, all the key players are in place to make the post-antibiotic world a reality. In other words, antibiotics are failing. It's a case of if, it's a case of when, not if this problem manifests. Well, in the case of a virus, yes, it is manifesting. There's no antibiotics for viruses, and antivirals may not work, and they're kind of dangerous, and they're kind of expensive. What is ozone? Ozone is O3. Out here, I'm breathing O2. It is made naturally in the stratosphere by ultraviolet rays from the sun breaking O2, and then one oxygen atom goes off and strikes an O2, and it hooks onto it temporarily to make O3. Ozone doesn't last real long. It's the most powerful oxidizing agent known to man that's found in nature. The only thing that is more powerful is fluorine, F2. Ozone is not a poisonous gas, but it is very irritating to the lungs, and you don't want to breathe it because it can hurt the lungs, but otherwise it is not a poison gas. Chlorine as an oxidant can leave a toxic residue of chlorinated compounds. Ozone leaves no toxic residue. The only thing it leaves behind is H2O, which is water, and CO2, which is carbon dioxide. You can smell ozone after a lightning storm. The air smells sweet, and that's one of the joys of having a thunderstorm pass through. It cleanses the air. Now, for the biochemistry buffs, this may have some value. Here's ozone, O3, and it typically likes electron-rich molecules. This is a double unsaturated bond of carbon, unsaturated fat, we'll say. Ozone is electron seeking. There's 4 electrons here. Ozone's going to move right in and grab them. And it's going to make an ozone bridge here, and eventually this bond will break down and create a whole bunch of what you can see here are highly oxygenated compounds. This is called an aldehyde. This is a peroxide. This is an organic acid over here. So ozone therapy creates these molecules, which are called ozonides, and they are downstream metabolites that talk to the immune system, stimulate it, and are weaker oxidants in their own right. And you'll see the value of those weaker oxidants in a moment. But ozone is essentially instantly gone as soon as it touches your blood, because it's that powerful. It's going to oxidize these bonds immediately. Well, there's this misnomer. Aren't we supposed to be scared of oxidants and use antioxidants? Not so. That's false. And that was a theory that befuddled me when I first saw ozone in 1986. I said, hey, ozone? It's an oxidant. We're supposed to be into antioxidants. Not so. Your body is awash in pro-oxidants and free radicals. You might be interested to know that your own mitochondria, the furnaces in the cells of your body, divert 5% of all of its oxygen consumption into what's called the superoxide radical. This happens for a reason. I have a strong belief in the Creator, and I don't believe God makes mistakes. When you have superoxide, the body can then divert that into what it needs in terms of pro-oxidant defenses. Here's superoxide. This is a free radical. Superoxide then can be quenched by your body into hydrogen peroxide, which is a very powerful oxidant, and you're familiar with it because you can pour it on wounds or on your skin, and it kills bacteria virtually on contact. It can make a dangerous free radical called hydroxyl radical, all of these are in equilibrium with each other. Nitric oxide, which is critical for your blood vessels to be open. Nitric oxide is a vasodilator. Men will be familiar with it because Viagra increases nitric oxide to get better erections, and you need nitric oxide for blood flow to that part of the body. This is bleach, hypochlorite. It's an oxidant of chloride. Singlet oxygen, the body actually makes O3, that's been shown, and ono, oxides of nitrogen. All of these are in a constant state of balance. And they serve, sorry, that's a couple typos here. They serve as cellular messengers, as ammunition, as repelling invaders, cell signaling. And as I said, the best known here is nitric oxide, which is the object of drugs like Viagra. These compounds are not evil. They are absolutely essential for life. So, Cuban research, this is the work of Dr. Silvia Menendez in Cuba. Her team showed that if you precondition animals with ozone before giving them a toxic shock, you improve survival rate. And this didn't come out real well here, but I will show you that ozone, right here, letter H, this is ozone here, compares very favorably to dexamethasone, a very, very potent steroid, in inhibiting something called TNF alpha. TNF alpha is a very potent inflammatory cytokine. It promotes inflammation. And when you give an animal a shock, like an infection or a toxin, the animal goes into shock, TNF alpha, and other molecules are expressed that are extraordinarily pro-inflammatory. Ozone can work as well as a steroid with no toxicity. The medical world doesn't know about this. This is ozone effects on blood. If you take a drop of blood and look at it under a microscope, the blood may coil up. This is a pile of coins. It's called rouleau. And after ozone application, the blood cells are nicely dispersed. They're repelling each other, which is they should do, so you actually get much better circulation. So why ozone for viruses? Viruses have two key structures in their membranes that are critical for cell entry: lipids and proteins. Might these crucial structures be vulnerable to ozone? And Ed had a diagram of a coronavirus on for you, and this is new to me, so I don't have that. I've got Ebola virus. And I'm going to fast forward to Ebola. And what you see here, this is an Ebola, and it's got a single strand of a genetic material, and it is surrounded by a lipid envelope and these spikes called glycoproteins. The coronavirus is shaped a little bit differently than this, but it's basically the same thing. It's got genetic material surrounded by a lipid envelope, and then it's got spikes on it that give it its name, corona, for crown. We're going to get to that in just a moment. Norwalk virus, poliovirus, and bacteriophage, which is a virus, gets inactivated by ozone in water. If you come down here, you'll see this study indicates that these viruses, as well as other enteric viruses, that includes polio, can be reduced rapidly and extensively by ozone disinfection. So ozone basically wipes them out almost instantly. We'll talk about why in a moment. Measurement of the inactivation kinetics of poliovirus by ozone. So here you can see that inactivation of poliovirus occurred in 2 steps, and in 0.2 to 1 second, 95 to nearly 100% of the virus was inactivated in a fraction of a second at low concentrations of ozone. So you leave it there for a little bit longer and the rest of the viruses get knocked out. Human asymptomatic Ebola infection and strong inflammatory responses. I put this together during the Ebola epidemic because Ebola elicits a very strong inflammatory response. And that's essentially how it kills. It gets your immune system to come out and start machine gunning everything around in an attempt to save your life. And that machine gunning also takes you down too. That's how Ebola kills. And viral pneumonia probably kills in a similar fashion. If you have read, there are cases of this virus where it has elicited what they call a cytokine storm. And ozone should temper that by its effect in modulating the immune system. Georgian Medical News 2006, medical ozone has direct antiviral activity, which includes long-term remission and in some cases, total elimination of virus from blood. Ozone is a modulator of the immune system and it stimulates cell immunity. Here's the Ebola virus once again. So take a look at these. These are glycoproteins. These are sort of like spikes. This is not dissimilar to the coronavirus. Most viruses that I have studied are totally dependent upon these glycoproteins. And the nice thing about it is they have a huge vulnerability. Here's one of them. Alterations in membrane lipid composition. Now let's go back. This is the lipid, the red. This is the glycoprotein. So if you hit either of these, either the lipid or the glycoprotein, you can knock down its infectivity. This is an article that says alterations of lipid composition can block viral release and entry, and certain lipids act as fusion inhibitors, suggesting the potential for antiviral drugs. Drugs, notice. However, the conclusion of this article says, understanding the manifold roles of lipids in viral replication, that they're trying to develop potential antivirals, but current compounds lack specificity and are unacceptably toxic. So I can assure you that what pharma is working on are chemicals to do this, and they will be unacceptably toxic. There are electron-rich bonds in the envelope of the virus, and those electron-rich bonds can be attacked by ozone, altering the lipid envelope, rendering it much less infective. But here is where it really gets interesting. Journal of Virology, 1999, free thiol groups are essential for infectivity of human cytomegalovirus. I'll show you what that is in a moment. But if you know the chemical structure of water, water is HOH. The OH is called a hydroxyl. Hydrogen sulfide is the same thing, but it's got sulfur instead of oxygen. It is HSH. And the SH group is the thiol group or sulfhydryl group. This research is what caused me to go to Sierra Leone for Ebola. The study of this group says these observations suggest that free thiol groups on CMV are required for infectivity, and they participate in disulfide bond formation during virus entry. So free thiol groups, that means SH groups are required for CMV to get into the cell. And we'll go to the next one. Well, ozone, here's the sulfhydryl group, SH. Now I want you to imagine each of your fingers in your hand being SH groups. Each finger is SH. And your finger then latches on to a cell, the SH group, and holds it like this, and then it opens it and it plops in. The thing is, it requires SH, and if the hydrogen gets stripped away by an oxidant, whether it's hydrogen peroxide, bleach, ozone, now you have SS instead of SH, and the thiol groups, what opens the cookie jar now looks like this, and it can't get in. It can't open the cookie jar. So if we inactivate these thiol groups on the cysteine residues, cysteine is a molecule that has this, and you'll see the coronavirus has it too in just a moment, then you've inactivated the virus on contact. Our cells can repair this damage, and the damage actually stimulates our cells to repair faster. It's sort of like exercising muscle. You have to exercise, you have to wear the muscle, and then it comes back stronger. So our cells can do this in the face of an oxidant. A virus can't. The viruses and the bacteria are inactivated. Here you see the sulfhydryl group, the thiol group, interacting with ozone, and the sulfhydryl groups get oxidized to what's called disulfide. This is inactive. So these are your fingers now becoming like this. And it releases water and oxygen, and it releases surplus energy. This is a heat releasing reaction. It's very active, and it occurs on contact. As soon as the ozone sees this, it grabs the hydrogen from both of these. One atom of oxygen comes off, two atoms of hydrogen come off here, making water and disulfide. The virus is now inactive. How do we know this might work? And this is what really perplexes me about modern medicine. They're looking for anything that is going to enrich somebody's pockets at your expense, emptying your wallets. Here is an article that was published, notice the journal, Lancet. Whoops. Lancet, 1920, the great influenza epidemic, where people were dying of the same thing they're dying of here with coronavirus. He was in India, a British physician, and he found that by infusing a few pennies worth of dilute hydrogen peroxide, cut the death rate of this condition by 50%. Hydrogen peroxide instantly disappears in the blood, exactly like ozone. However, the oxidation effects last. He only treated severe and hopeless cases. He only treated the people who were about to die, and he cut their death rate by 50%. This is out there in mainstream literature, and everyone's ignoring it. Ultraviolet blood irradiation therapy in acute virus and virus-like infections. This is a sister therapy of ozone like hydrogen peroxide is. This was published in our country in the Review of Gastroenterology in 1948 by these fellows, Miley and Christensen, who were great pioneers in UBI therapy. We do this in our office as well. And they cured basically every virus condition that came in there in this article. Viral pneumonia, even polio. They lost a couple cases of polio that had what's called bulbar polio, very seriously advanced cases, but otherwise they were able to knock out virus conditions very quickly, and they saw clearing of viral pneumonia on X-ray. So where are we at today with this? Coronavirus, spike proteins. And sometimes I wonder why a mere clinician like me down in the trenches is putting this stuff together, and the erudite guys in the white ivory towers of the university aren't connecting some dots. All I'm doing is just connecting dots and trying to explain why we see ozone working in such a variety of conditions. I mean, it's very seldom that it doesn't work. Here, this was published in 2009, and it says that the coronavirus spike protein is responsible for mediating membrane fusion, exactly what I told you. It's how it fuses to the cell to get in. And if you'll see here, these are flanked by cysteine residues, loaded with cysteine. So this is an amino acid that's extraordinarily vulnerable to oxidation in the chemical reaction that I just showed you previously. So it would make sense that this could be knocked out. And from what you know of coronavirus, it makes sense. And influenza viruses, because they're not around much in the summer. Heat is going to make this go much faster. So maybe coronavirus will die out in the next couple months. We don't know that. Sunlight, ultraviolet, is going to do this. And the virus just sitting around on a surface, it's got a shelf life. It's between 2 and maybe 9 days. Oxygen is gradually breaking this down, and it will happen faster at higher temperature. Here, this is another one, another article, 2004. Genetic analysis of determinants for spike glycoprotein assembly in coronavirus virions and distinct roles for cysteine-rich regions. We found that the adjacent cysteine-rich regions is critical for the fusion of infected cells. So it makes sense that anything that's going to knock these down is going to assist in treating this disease. And with the Cuban research showing that pre-treatment of animals, pre-treating you with ozone, the animal reduces their expression of disease. Well, I find that clinically in my office, and so do my trainees, the people we have trained over 30 years of doing ozone. When you treat somebody with ozone before surgery, before a challenge to their body, they do much, much better because their body now has been oxidized, their body is stronger. And in the case of those ozonides that I showed you, those molecules, they're circulating around the body. And if you get exposed to something that could be vulnerable to oxidation therapy, those molecules might take it out. Here is the Lancet article. I have an original, not the original copy, but a real copy of it. Lancet by Oliver, influenza pneumonia, the intravenous injection of hydrogen peroxide. Hey people, anybody who's skeptical out there, really look at this. Lancet, February 21, 1920. And this tells you that Oliver cut the mortality rate of an untreatable infection by 50% for pennies. Ozone quickly kills bacteria. Why? Here you can see the amount of bacteria exposed to ozone after 1 second. These are what's left. And after 15 seconds, virtually nothing is left. Why does it work? Ozone comes along, powerful oxidant, literally attaches to the bacterial membrane, punches a hole in it, and the bacteria lyses. It's like blowing it up before it has a chance to recover. Now let's compare this to bleach. They're using bleach for disinfection for coronavirus. They used it for Ebola. How does bleach compare to oxygen-based compounds? Well, when you look at this, this is my note. Ebola decontamination was performed with chlorine compounds with a proven speed of about 1% that of ozone. And ozone is exceptionally safe. The only problem with ozone, which I'll get to, is you don't want to inhale it. It can be taken any other way. Now, how can I prove this to you further? This is from Scripps Institute, and it was published in Science News, December 2002. Our own cells have the capacity to make ozone. Scripps researchers in Southern California found that when your body makes something called singlet oxygen, that's an active form of oxygen, then antibodies associated with your immune cells can activate that singlet oxygen to make ozone. So our cells actually do make ozone. Ozone effects in infection. Ozone floods the body. If you give ozone therapy, it floods the bloodstream with oxidants. So any contact on a pathogen with ozone, in my opinion, is going to kill that pathogen outright. But in truth, ozone isn't, if you get ozone in your bloodstream here, we'll say it's going to react immediately. The ozone isn't going to make it to your lungs, but it's going to create all those molecules called ozonides. They're longer living. And while they're less powerful than ozone, they still have an action in probably in getting the pathogens, but also they stimulate the immune system. They modulate the immune system. They improve the rheological properties of blood. That means better blood flow. I showed you that on the slide of the red blood cells repelling each other. Ozone stimulates red blood cells to dump more oxygen into your tissues. Oxygen is the fundamental of healing. It is the basis of all healing. Wounds don't heal when they don't have oxygen. Infections don't heal when they don't have oxygen. Your body needs oxygen for energy, and if oxygen is low, you're just not going to heal as well. Ozone stimulates mitochondrial oxygen consumption. More ATP is generated. I think I've already shown you this one. So this is our work in Sierra Leone. This was published in the African Journal of Infectious Diseases. And I was just on the phone today, about an hour ago, with a reporter for the New York Daily News, and she didn't know about this. And I said, well, we tried to get it in all the news and all the world. And she says, well, why didn't they pick it up? And I said, your guess is as good as mine. You're part of the news. So we published this several years ago, and we had 5 cases of Ebola, and all 5 recovered within a couple days, and they had no sequela. And the survival rate in that epidemic was only 40%, and we had 5 lab or proven or positive symptomatic patients. All of them had extreme exposure risk. The last one that we did was the female consort of their senior physician who had just died of Ebola, refusing ozone therapy, and she was scared to death. She was his consort. And she was placed under an armed military guard at her house for quarantine. She was scared for her life. We didn't know it at the time, but she was symptomatic. And if they had known that, she'd have been thrown in the tank with a 40% survival rate. If you multiply this out, our results by chance would have only been 1%. It's much less than that because all of our patients improved immediately. And over 70% of Ebola survivors went on to have post-Ebola problems. We don't know what's going to happen with coronavirus. None of our patients did. The world doesn't know because the news media doesn't want you to know. This is my opinion. Ozone effects, what does it do? It enhances oxygen delivery. It improves blood flow and nitric oxide, important for blood flow. It modulates the immune system and cytokines. It inactivates viruses on contact. It enhances and modulates immune cells. It also stimulates, I should have had this on here, something in your system called prostacyclin, which is your blood vessel's most important vascular lubricator. No prostacyclin, no blood flow. Ozone stimulates that. And that is the end of my slideshow.
Robert, we have a lot of questions.
Ed to lead me into questions and comments, but I want to talk about ozone delivery. Should I do that, Ed?
Yeah, the first question is how to get ozone into your body. So it's a perfect lead-in question for you.
All right. You will need an ozone generator. And we have information on generators on my Facebook page. If you scroll back, there's a few companies that we like. And I'm not here to sell you a machine. I think you will get results with either machine, and generally you get what you pay for. I will say that, and I do believe that to be the case with ozone machines. You will need an ozone generator, which is about the size of a shoebox, and an oxygen tank. And the oxygen flows from the tank through the machine, and the machine then puts out ozone. That ozone can be put into a bag for wounds. It can be put into a smaller bag that you can roll into your rectum for rectal ozone. Women can do this vaginally. You can get a stethoscope. Just pretend this is a stethoscope. And then you can have ozone go up the tube into the stethoscope to treat your ear. You can bubble ozone into a flask and make ozone water and drink it. I do that every day. I'm getting ozone in some form almost every day of the week. And then the final way that you can't do in your home is blood ozone. And if you were sick, I would go to blood ozone. And there's several forms of blood ozone. The one I like the best, which might not be the most practical for a pandemic, is what's called hyperbaric ozone therapy, where blood is taken out of your vein and it goes into a bottle. Let's pretend this is a bottle. Ozone gets pumped into the glass bottle, and I like glass, not plastic. It gets pumped in under pressure, and the blood gets driven back into your vein under pressure. That's called hyperbaric ozone therapy, and it's been popularized in this country called tent pass, based on the work of Austrian physician Johann Lahadny, who calls it ozone high dose therapy. If someone is really sick, we do tent pass. A simpler way to do it, which was highly developed by my Sierra Leone blood brother, Howard Robbins, is called DIV, direct intravenous gas, where a syringe is filled up with ozone and slowly pushed into, the gas is slowly pushed into the vein. Now everybody's going to be scared. Gas, I'm going to die, air. That's not the case. This is oxygen, it's not nitrogen. Oxygen is consumed very quickly. The body absorbs it. Nitrogen is not. You get the bends from nitrogen. Oxygen gas has been put into the veins of people in Europe for decades, literally decades, and there's articles about this, and it has very positive, beneficial medical effects. Just oxygen gas by itself, even without the ozone. So these are the ways it can be given. My wife, Terry Sue, Dr. Terry Sue, and colleague and partner, and I made a video which is available at ozonewithoutborders.ngo. It's a nonprofit, ozonewithoutborders.ngo. And for a $20 donation to that nice organization, you'll get to see a 1-hour video on all of the methods of ozone that can be done at home. The only thing we didn't do is ozone sauna, but everything else is there.
Robert, just like to make a comment. It's important that you use medical grade or industrial grade pure oxygen. I know some patients tried to do a shortcut and used an oxygen concentrator, which can be very dangerous because that concentrates the nitrogen also, which can produce a harmful byproduct.
It oxidizes the nitrogen, which you don't want. The only place that I feel an oxygen concentrator could be used is if you're doing an ozone sauna. Otherwise, I don't like it.
There's another question here about vaccines. Can oxidative treatments, ozone therapy help with some of the adjuvants that are in the vaccines that are causing problems?
Well, if somebody gets a vaccine, I would want to do ozone immediately. I would want to do ozone before they get it and after they get it. I would do it before them to precondition them for the toxic insult, and I would want to do it right afterwards to help oxidize out some of the toxins and poisons and help their body. So yes, if somebody needs a vaccine, I do that.
Also, some of you out there, I have 2 YouTube videos. If you search my last name, Kondrot and Ozone, on how to put together a machine for rectal insufflation. That's available on YouTube. Another question about ozonated water. Can ozonated water help, in your opinion, in treating the coronavirus?
Personally, I believe that any form of ozone is going to help. I just believe in this case, more soldiers are better, so it's a good idea to get more. And ozone water will only have a limited amount of ozone in the water. Yes, I think it's got some benefit. Rectal ozone may have more benefit because I think you'll have actually more ozone molecules, and blood ozone gets directly to the area. And by the way, you mentioned YouTube. I want the viewers here to know that I have a YouTube channel. It's my name, Robert Rowen, MD, all one word, Robert Rowen, MD channel. Please consider going to that channel. I have at least 400 patients up there telling their story about what these therapies do for them. If you didn't see some of these things, you wouldn't believe it. So that's why we've put it up.
Yeah, it's a great YouTube channel, Robert Rowen, MD. Great videos on there. A person needs a confirmation. You did say that sunlight would destroy the coronavirus.
Let's look at influenza. And in many cases, we don't know that the colds we're getting in influenza was a coronavirus or not because it's not being checked for. These viruses tend to go away in the summertime. It's warmer. So you're probably getting more effective oxygen at higher temperature, oxidizing those sulfhydryl groups. Sunlight, ultraviolet light can do the same thing. I'm not a researcher. Don't get me wrong. I'm a clinician, and I'm trying to tell you what I see as common sense in this matter. I wouldn't want somebody outdoors to be coughing on me with coronavirus because I could get it. I'm not going to deny that. It might take some time for the sunlight to destroy the virus. And if I suck it in instantly, then the virus is in me before it gets inactivated. But yes, in general, ultraviolet is going to inactivate these viruses. And we know that because airlines and hospitals use ultraviolet to purify air in a lot of their rooms.
And remember, the old days, they had the tubercular sanitariums, and they were located at high altitudes where there was intense sunlight. And that's the way people were treated.
Yes.
Question is about inflammation, reducing inflammation for rheumatoid arthritis using ozone. Can you comment on that?
I would recommend that you go to my YouTube channel and you'll see cases of autoimmune disease dramatically improved and sometimes totally resolved using ozone therapy. Ozone modulates the immune system. If your immune system is overactive like this and attacking your body, ozone tends to bring it like this back into balance. If your immune system is like this, with your cellular immune system weak, such as AIDS, and your humoral antibody immune system being very high, causing allergies, causing eczema, causing asthma, ozone will tend to bring it back like this, balancing it.
Here's an interesting question. What about bubbling ozone through olive oil to create ozonoids? Then perhaps you could breathe this for additional humidity when maybe you're traveling in an airplane.
Excellent question. I want to just touch on the rheumatoid arthritis. On my YouTube channel, there's a patient named Maria. She was crippled on several drugs several years ago from rheumatoid arthritis. Just with ozone and ultraviolet therapy, she's living a normal life. Her children are grateful. And sometimes I have to inject a couple lingering inflamed joints in her hand. Now, the airplane. If you go to ozonewithoutborders.ngo and look at the video that my wife and I made, you will see how to bubble ozone through oil to do exactly what you're talking about. The answer is yes. You do not want to breathe ozone gas directly. It is hard on the lungs. It can stimulate coughing and irritation. Of course, ozone at very low concentrations, like after a thunderstorm or an air purifier set correctly, it's going to smell sweet like a thunderstorm. But higher than that, if it smells pungent, you don't want that. It will be hard on the lungs. If you bubble the gas through oil, a mist comes up, and it's ozonides of the oil. There's a particular term for it, and I can't think of it offhand, but this is very safe to breathe and beneficial. American hospitals were doing this at the turn of the last century when Tesla's generator just came out. They would mix 2 parts pine oil and 1 part eucalyptus oil, bubble it through and breathe it. And it smells really nice. And I've used it on myself and other people for treating sinuses and lung issues.
This question has already been answered. Can you use an oxygen concentrator instead of an oxygen tank? And the answer is absolutely no.
Absolutely not, except for ozone sauna. You can use it for an ozone sauna, but absolutely not otherwise.
Can you use a hydrogen peroxide nebulizer as an option for people who don't have access to ozone?
Yeah, the answer is yes. And if you go to my office website, Dr. Rowen, Dr. Sue, Dr. Rowen, DRSU, it's my wife's name, .com. We have blog posts on using hydrogen peroxide for nebulization. You can go there. I cannot diagnose or treat you. Please know that. And we have disclaimers. Anything you do for yourself. The only thing I can do in these videos and in the home demonstration and on our blog post is tell you what we tell our patients. I can't diagnose, I can't give you specific recommendations for you, but I can tell you under freedom of speech what we do for our patients and try and save you money and agony by getting you this information, and you don't have to pay a penny for it.
No, also, if a patient would want to have a consultation with you, how would they go about that, Robert?
They could call the office. We have in-person and phone consultations. They could call the office, 707-578-7787, and just tell them they want to either get in or they want a phone consult. Because of coronaviruses, we do have something special right now. If anybody wants to come in for blood ozone therapy and they don't want to go through an hour and a half standard new patient appointment with me, and they are not sick and they don't have medical conditions to discuss, and they want just a clearance to get these therapies and education, we have what's called a 15-minute meet and greet. So they're only going to pay for 15 minutes of my time so I can clear them, because it requires an exam, for parenteral, that means IV therapy, and get them to treatment.
A couple of questions here about directions on how to make ozone water. And I'm going to repeat that. Dr. Rowen's YouTube is youtube.com/Robert Rowen MD. And what I'll do is I'm going to send all this information, everybody who registered for this webinar, I'll email them all the contact information. So Robert, if you could fire me all the contact information, websites, everything you talked about, so people have access to that.
Ed, is my screen still visible?
Your screen is still visible, so you can fire something up. Here's a question here, clarification. Oxygen concentrators remove nitrogen from the air. I'm not aware of them removing nitrogen. It just concentrates the oxygen and the nitrogen. You want to comment on that,
yeah,
Robert?
What oxygen concentrator does is it takes 20% oxygen, and through the paramagnetic effects of oxygen, it can raise that to above 90%. So what comes out of the oxygen concentrator is more oxygen and less nitrogen.
But you still have nitrogen, and passing nitrogen through an ozone generator will make harmful nitrogen products, correct?
Yes, you will get oxides of nitrogen. So I would not do this for any application where it could be administered inside the body. Ozone saunas, I don't have an issue with. We have a Hockett, H-O-C-A-T-T sauna in our office. It's the cat's meow for ozone saunas, and it uses an oxygen concentrator because it's moving a tremendous amount of ozone through it. And you don't have to worry so much about oxides of nitrogen if it's done correctly and you don't have such a high arc discharge to break the nitrogen bonds. But I would not be doing this through one of the standard ozone machines where you're trying to make ozone for rectal use or for water or for ear, etc.
Another question is breathing, I think you answered this, is breathing O3 ozone through oil valuable?
I answered that. Yes, you can't breathe O3 raw, but if you bubble it through oil and it smells sweet, like the effects of the oil, that's very safe and it's therapeutic. That was published over 100 years ago in this country. But if you smell raw ozone and it's pungent, then you have to do something different.
And what is your definition of low dose ozone?
Given intravenously, low dose ozone might be 10 gamma micrograms per cc. A gamma is micrograms per cc. I'm actually doing some experiments on my own head. I injected a 10 to 15 gamma right here to try to preserve my hair. Hint, hint, Ed. For IV use, we use, for the hyperbaric ozone, we use 70 gamma. For direct intravenous gas, we use, I like lower dose. Howard Robbins uses 55 gamma. I use 30 to protect the vein. Low dose is considered anywhere between, say, 10 and 20.
Here's a question. What about ambient air ozone machines? Doesn't that have nitrogen in the ozone?
Good question. The ambient air ozone machine is an ozone purifier, but the electrical discharge that's making that ozone is not that high. It's not that high a voltage. The ozone generators that we're using for medical use are a very high voltage. They will split nitrogen, but the ozone generators, the air cleansers that are making ozone out of air, are much, much lower voltage, and oxygen is much easier to split than nitrogen. Nitrogen has a triple bond. However, I can do this. Nitrogen has a triple bond. That's much harder to split than oxygen's single bond. So the air cleaners have a much lower voltage.
Can you nebulize ozonated water and breathe the ozone going through water?
No. And the reason why is because that's ozone that's going to come off of the water. That's raw ozone, and you're not going to be a happy camper, neither will your lungs be.
And a question here, can you provide us with a copy of your slideshow?
I don't know. I got to think about that.
Yeah, you can email it to me, and then I can send it to the group.
Okay.
How can we help get medical ozone therapies visible during the coronavirus scare? Is there a form letter that I can sign to get to my elected officials? You want to talk about your connection with Vice President Pence?
I have no direct connection. My materials on ozone were given to Pence's team 2 days ago electronically. He knows he was a former member of the Trump organization, and he got my materials to Pence's team. Are they going to do anything with it? I don't know. The problem is pharmaceutical and government is like this. If you recall, President Eisenhower warned us about the military-industrial complex. He warned us. He told us that the military-industrial complex was hand in hand with government creating wars to make money. We now have a government pharma complex, and they own the government. This is my opinion. That's my political opinion. And our government is owned, and that's why we have forced vaccines. I don't have any doubt about that. So we have forced vaccines with no safety studies. I don't know what to tell you here. My suggestion is call the media, every media person you know, NBC, ABC, Glenn Beck, Coast to Coast. We got to break some ice here because it's being stonewalled, in my opinion, and I can't tell you why. Maybe it's the stranglehold pharma has over advertising. Maybe it's because this is not, quote, FDA approved. Well, the problem is, people, there's going to be thousands and thousands, maybe tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people dying waiting to get this FDA approved, because it's not going to get FDA approved, because it's not going to make $1 billion that you need for a pharma company to put it through FDA. It just ain't going to happen. And we have something that's out there generic. It's generic. That's safe, that probably is effective for this. I know it's effective for lots of stuff, and it makes sense it would be effective for this. And you're just not going to see anybody work on it unless the government decides it cares more about people than corporations, and then the government will fund it.
Have you done any direct ozone treatment for this virus currently? Have you treated anybody?
I have not, but I'm certainly ready and willing to do it and go anywhere. I'd have gone on the ship. I even let the governor know I'd go on the ship.
And here's a comment. Wow, awesome, Dr. Rowen.
Thank you for that.
Oh, and if you are enjoying this presentation, please send me your comments, both positive and negative. And also go to healthyvision.us to sign up for our next webinar. Dr. Marcel Vega is going to be speaking on essential oils, which can have a phenomenal effect on treating viruses.
Ed, question for you. Will there be any way that the people who are not here live can get a link to this to see it?
Oh, I'm sending everybody. Over close to 1,000 people signed up, and everybody's going to get a link to watch it.
Well, I want to have a link to put out to my Facebook group.
Yeah,
Facebook group. So you'll have
I'll
to
send it to you.
Okay.
For 75-year-old parents, what would you say they should do to prevent getting the coronavirus at home if they already have an ozone machine? How many times per week, concentration, volumes, etc.? So what is your, I guess, preventive protocol? And maybe you could talk about how ozone improves the immune system.
I would be taking rectal ozone at least 5 or 6 days a week. I would be drinking ozone water. I might be putting it in my ears. All these methods are very safe, can help build up immunity, oxidize your body, and make people more resistant. This is what I would tell my patients.
And this is what I'm doing with my wife. We're doing
what I'm telling my patients.
My wife and I are doing rectal insufflation right now every other day, but if the incidence starts to increase in Florida, we'll be doing it probably every day.
I'm drinking ozone water every day. I do ear insufflation almost every day. And I take, and this is just me, and I'm not recommending it, I take blood ozone in my blood generally once a week or once every 2 weeks.
I think you covered this, but maybe you want to repeat it again. What gamma do you use for rectal insufflation, and what volume?
That's in my training session that's up at Ozone Without Borders. I typically have my patients start at 20 and work their way up to as high as 50 gamma and volume to tolerance. And I have no compunction about treating children. I just alter the volume based on weight. So I'm 70 kilograms, 155 pounds. If a child came in at 80 pounds, I would weight proportionate. Let's say a child is 40 pounds. That's a quarter of my weight. So instead of doing 400 cc's, I might do 100 cc's of volume.
Here's a comment. Ozone Without Borders is $75 or $145 yearly, not $20. My comment is the 75 or 145 is a good investment to have access to all that information. Also, I'll put a plug in for my mission work. All it takes is $100 donation and you'll restore the vision of somebody totally blind. So we are offering this webinar free to you. But if you find it in your heart to donate $100, in fact, we will send you a picture of the blind person that you help restore their lost vision. Just go to idonation.us and 100% of your donation will go to the mission work. Here's a comment from Mike. He watched all your videos. amazing work that you're doing. And also he thanks me for helping him recover his vision. And I'm using Ozone routinely. All of my patients that come to Florida receive Ozone treatment. And if you're afraid about traveling to my office for one of my programs, it's probably the safest place you can be because we do ultraviolet blood irradiation and ozone, right? Right, Robert?
We have air purifiers running in our office.
Mhm.
Ours are peroxide purifiers. And I don't know of anybody getting transmission of disease in our office ever.
Well, you want to talk a little bit about cost? What's the range of cost for in-office ozone treatments?
It depends on what you do. Most people want our blood treatment, and we have recently lowered the cost actually of the 10 pass, and our patients are grateful for that. And we're trying to really reach out and help people. It costs money to do this, and we have highly trained nurses. A single pass of hyperbaric ozone is $230. Each additional pass, we have lowered the price to $60. So a 10 pass now, I believe, is around $750. We've lowered it a couple $100. Rectal ozone is much less expensive, and because it doesn't require a needle stick. It doesn't even require a nurse for that matter. The Hockett sauna, which is a fabulous treatment if you don't have veins, and probably works as well as a blood treatment, I believe is around $160. Don't quote me on this. You'd have to call the office for prices. They know better than I do.
Here's another comment. Dr. Rowen, you're excellent. I love you very much, and I'd like to go on a date with you.
Come on, be real. You didn't get that.
I did.
You did?
Yeah,
Hey,
it's from a guy.
Oh. Sorry. I'm married and I'm heterosexual.
Here's a question here. He's in Guyana, Africa. Does the coronavirus have connection to MERS?
MERS is a coronavirus, to the best of my knowledge, and it had a higher death rate than this one. But to the best of my knowledge, MERS is a coronavirus.
And this patient commented that she received major autohemotherapy, which is IV ozone, for a tick-borne illness, and with complete resolution. And she's walking proof that it's effective for the Lyme disease.
Our results with Lyme disease are about 80%. I don't think anyone in conventional medicine comes even close.
And what are your thoughts about extracorporeal blood ozonation? Wouldn't this be the most effective at decreasing viral load and supercharging the immune system? I think you commented on that, but you may want to repeat it again.
We do it. It's essentially ozone dialysis, and we have it. And it is the most expensive modality we have. I believe we've lowered the price on that too to around $1,100 or so. And it is probably the most effective. In that, blood comes out of your vein here, and it circulates through a dialysis membrane, and then it goes back into your other vein here, getting a large portion of your blood volume under ideal conditions. We like it a lot. If you ask our patients who have had that and 10 pass, probably 7 of them will say they like that better than the 10 pass, which is pretty good because 10 pass is our gold standard.
I think you'll like this question. Some countries like Vietnam are using diet and nutrition to treat the coronavirus, and they're very successful. What's your take on this?
If you saw the very first slide I had, ozone does more for more conditions than anything I've ever seen in conventional medicine combined, except diet, detoxification, and stress reduction. Those are the 3 fundamentals. So I highly respect Vietnam.
And very thankful for you, Robert. And you are in San Francisco, the San Francisco area. Those people that are listening in California, you're in Santa Rosa, which is just north of San Francisco, in case someone's interested in going to your office.
Yes.
Suggestions for a patient whose ears itch after doing auricular ozone.
That's an issue. Topical ozone has irritated the skin of some people. Some women who take it vaginally, it can irritate their membrane, and even in the ear. I have seen some people get a little bit of crustiness, and I don't have a good suggestion for that except to lower the concentration. I take ozone in my ear at maximum concentration. I take it at about 90 gamma, and I demonstrate that on the Ozone Without Borders site. By the way, I would love it if you join Ozone Without Borders, but you can get to that video by a donation of $20. There's a box where you make a donation of $20, and then the link will be manually sent to you so that you can see it. So getting back to ear, I tell my patients, lower the concentration. In some cases, no matter how low you go, you still get the problem. Then you can't do it.
A question here, can a person who is legally blind due to macular degeneration have their eyesight restored? I don't know if this is in regards to ozone or other treatments, but if you have any viable or dysfunctional retinal tissue in your eye, certainly ozone, microcurrent, there's many modalities that can stimulate the eye to heal, but you can send me a copy of your records. I do free reviews. Send me a copy of your eye records at freeconsult.us. That's freeconsult.us. I'll look at the records and I'll give you my honest opinion, and there's no charge for that. There's a question here about medical equipment. I don't know if this person's a doctor, wants to know where they can get a Lorlock syringe and 200cc syringe. I think that
just go online. Just go online.
Yeah. All right. Will there be a replay of this webinar? And the answer is no, but I've recorded everything, and all of you that signed up will get a copy of the webinar. Good question here about if you're doing auricular ozone and using a stethoscope. Do you need to be careful not to breathe the ozone?
The way I do it, it's really nice. Ed, I'm going to cover my camera for a moment and go get it, and I'll be right back.
Okay, I'll try to answer some of these questions about malarial medications for the coronavirus. Well, any type of, most of the malarial medicines are antibiotics, and an antibiotic is not going to be effective for a virus. It will be effective for a bacterial infection, but there's no evidence that it's going to help. Can ozone help with shrinking female fibroids? You'll have to wait for Dr. Rowen for that. Any benefits of treating vitiligo with ozone therapy? Have no experience with that. Maybe we'll check with Dr. Ozone or Dr. Rowen. I called him Dr. Ozone. Maybe he should change his name. Another question about the syringes. You have to be careful with the syringes because, you know, ozone just eats into the plastic. And many of the syringes, most of the syringes are plastic. So ideally, you should have a glass syringe. And in terms of doctors around the United States who do ozone therapy, there's a question on that. There are a couple of websites, and Dr. Rowen has trained hundreds, if not thousands, of doctors in ozone therapy. I've taken his course a couple of times, and you can probably go to his website and get information on that, or go to his YouTube, Robert Rowen, MD. Go to youtube.com/Robert Rowen, MD.
All right, I'm back. So
there's a couple of questions here. One was about fibroids. Can ozone be effective in reducing uterine fibroids?
I have injected ozone into uterine fibroids with mixed results. That's all I can say.
And also vitiligo, treating vitiligo.
Vitiligo is an autoimmune disease, and I would try it. I would try it. I think diet has a lot to do with it. Let me, I want to be able to see what I'm showing you. Okay, so here I am. I just filled the syringe with ozone, so there's real ozone in the syringe. Here's the setup. I'm going to put it in my ears, and while I'm talking to you, I'm going to just slowly push this in. And you can see how slowly this is going. And this is on the Ozone Without Borders video we made. And I am not smelling any ozone coming out of my ears. Indoors, we used to teach people to do it with a bag and roll in the bag like this. But that's unwieldy, uncontrollable. A lot of gas will come out through your ear, and I'm pushing this in so slow that the ozone reacts in my ear instantly, and I don't smell anything.
And that may take care of the problem with the one person that talked about itching in the ears. Probably it's a high volume of ozone, which is causing dryness and irritation. Here's another excellent comment. What about selling patients an ozone bag for rectal insufflation? So they could come to your office.
An ozone bag. All right. There's a couple companies that I work with. One is called Longevity. One is called PromoLife. I'm comfortable with both of them. There are other ozone machines out there. You get what you pay for. The components in cheaper machines may suck and break down, and you won't be happy. I need to let you know that. These companies do have the accessories. If you go to PromoLife, they have a package called the Redwood package that gives you all of the accessories you need for all of this. If you go to Longevity, they have a package called the Orion package. And that gives you all the accessories that you need for doing the type of stuff that I've been talking about. Longevity asks for the Orion package. PromoLife asks for the Redwood package.
There's a comment. It looks like you're using a plastic syringe, Robert. Isn't there danger in using a plastic syringe?
I typically use glass, but there is issues with glass. You'll see that on my video. So go to the video at Ozone Without Borders. There's not really a problem with this. This is fairly ozone resistant, special syringe, and I'm not injecting it. I'm putting it in my ears. And we do use plastic syringes to inject the gas intravenously, and that's never been an issue. I wouldn't mix blood in plastic with ozone.
A couple of questions. Where can people get a list of ozone practitioners that you have trained?
At my website. My website is on the screen in front of you.
Maybe could you enlarge it? Is it possible to enlarge it? It's about a 5 font. But Robert, if you could email me a list of, much better. Yeah.
I'm sorry,
so
Ed,
if you could email me a list of all the sites, and I'll send it out to the group, everybody that signed up for the webinar.
Yeah, I'll be happy to do that. Are you off yet? I'm still talking, honey. On the webinar? Yeah.
Okay, well, we don't have any more questions. Closing comments, Robert?
Please, people, don't be in fear. I think that coronavirus will have more of a deleterious effect on our economy than you. For the vulnerable and those who want to play it safe, please consider ozone. There's other oxidants. There's nebulizing hydrogen peroxide. There's MMS, Master Mineral or Miracle Mineral Supplement. There are alternatives for you. And please don't be in fear. I don't think that this is going to be as major a catastrophe as you're led to believe. And I thank you all for being here.
Robert, thank you so much. And don't forget, folks, March the 19th, we're having a brilliant doctor talking about essential oils to treat the coronavirus. So I want to thank all of you for tuning in, and especially Dr. Rowen, thank you so much for taking our time. It was great. It was great information. Great information. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ed.
And thank all of you.